and Police Frampton. And he made many works at the Experimental Television Center. Once it was in Binghamton, then moved to Owego until 2009, which was co-founded by Ralph Hawkins when he was teaching at Binghamton University. And the pair created extensive body of work that investigates electronic media events, active participation systems, and the culture, including works for video, sound, digital print media, performance, installation, and dance. And his works have been exhibited and screened at many different venues, nationally and internationally, including Museum of Modern Art in New York, Anthology Film Archives, the Whitney Biennial, the European Media Art Festival in Germany, Impact Film and Video Art Festival in the Netherlands, and Viper Festival in Switzerland, among many others. And also, Per is a key figure of the Owego and Alfred School of Video Arts, and he directed a video arts program at the School of Art and Design, New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University, where he co-founded the Institute for Electronic Arts, where he recently retired from teaching. Also, I would like to mention that he is in a band, career band, and I just saw their performance at the Buffalo International Film Festival in October. And now I am going to spotlight him. Yes, so please join me and welcome Per Bode. So Per, your mic.
I think you get all the other stuff there too. I'm getting a mirror. Take a look at what I'm looking at.
I see what you're looking at. We're looking at the exact same thing.
Oh,
Hi.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
hi.
on the screen.
Okay. This is real-time experimentation. And, okay, so let's see here. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to actually be able to do this event. And the fact that we can do it on Zoom means you can be home. And I can be home. And I think actually we have quite a few people who are participating in this event, which is just great. I think it's absolutely amazing. So I guess I have a few things I want to say before we start the program. And I wrote them down, so just bear with me that I'm going to read a little bit, and there's just so much of detailed information that I'm just not going to remember it off the top of my head. So thank you. So I'd like to thank Tomonari Nishikawa and Daiicho Saito and Brian Murphy in Binghamton, and thank all of you for putting this event together. It's a lot of work to do these events. I have a short intro about myself that I would like to present to you, but before I do, I would like to begin by sharing some ideas with you. The video work I make, I would describe as work of independent cinema, independent video media, experimental cinema, experimental video media television. I would like to cite a 1972 article by Peter Wolin on the two avant-gardes. He cites the commercial avant-garde and the co-op avant-gardes. My work and practice has found itself in the world of independent production, a loose affiliation of artists, collaborations, art making, as well as media art organization making. I would also like to refer to Siegfried Zielinski's notion of the polyvalent space, the space of multiples, that frames the work, that is the interaction of the time and space experience and reception, interdiscursive spaces, as well as the individual wish machine. They are all in play in a polyvalent space. Lastly, I'd like to make reference to the notion of the moment form. Thank you, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. The moment form. What is the moment? How long does it last? How does the new moment begin? Let's talk about some moments. I was born in Rosenheim, Germany. My family came to the States, Brattleboro, Vermont in 1954. My father, Harold Bode, was one of the pioneers of electronic instrument design and building. In 1937, he made the Varbo electronic organ, the Mellicord, a pre-synthesizer in the late 40s and 50s. In 1960, he made the Mod synth, and then ring modulators and frequency shifters. In the 70s, vocoders, and then Barber pole phasers in the 1980s. I grew up hearing electronic music and electronic sounds from my father's workshop and sound studio downstairs. My early sound cocoon was electronic. My brother Ralph, 11 years older than I, was an actor and then celebrated commercial cinematographer for such films as Saturday Night Fever, Dressed to Kill, Coal Miner's Daughter, and the second camera unit for the Rocky I movie and its famous Philadelphia Museum of Art staircase scene. By the time I arrived at Harper College, Binghamton University in 1970, I had a short set of experiences as a child voice in radio car wash ads, in a short stint as a child theater critic, selected by actress Liza Minnelli to comment on the performances of the off-Broadway play Best Foot Forward. My brother was an actor in the play. They wanted to get me out of the dressing room and offered me my first professional critique experience. When I arrived in Binghamton, I had the beginnings of a short 8mm film I was making. I heard about the new cinema department and made an appointment and showed my film to filmmaker Larry Gottheim, who was the chair and founder of the new cinema department. He invited me to take classes, and then he invited me to take classes in the department. What a remarkable moment. Little did I know at that moment what I was heading into. The next 4 years I studied and grew as a human being and as an artist with the most remarkable group of artists as teachers. Larry Gottheim, Ken Jacobs, Nicholas Ray, Peter Kubelka, Ralph Hocking, Dan Barnett, Saul Levine, and writer-historian Maureen Turum. Ken Jacobs' nervous system expanded cinema pieces were remarkable. We studied Sergei Eisenstein, Maya Deren, Stan Brakhage, P. Adam Sitney, Jonas Makis, Michael Snow, Hollis Frampton, and others, within a close reading, close viewing analysis of the moving image works. I received my BA in cinema from Binghamton University in 1974. I discovered the Experimental Television Center in a production class, film production class, I believe in 1973, I had with Nicholas Ray. That was for a several-year student class project film to be called We Can't Go Home Again. In 2011, that film, completed by Susan Ray, was shown in some 30 international film festivals. The 49th New York Film Festival showcased it in a forum called 20th Century Masterworks. We were at the Experimental Television Center as students for a short time, learning about future electronic compositing potentials for the multi-screen film that we were making. Another moment. At the ETC, I discovered a video artist studio residency project in downtown Binghamton that was exploring and building electronic tools for artists to work with and the creation of new future electronic arts studios. The ETC was started, as some of you may know, by Ralph Hocking in 1972 in room B32, downstairs in the cinema department. Electronic media artist Walter Wright encouraged me to go to graduate school in Buffalo. I did. In 1975, I went to the New Media Study Buffalo program at the University of Buffalo, founded by Jerry O'Grady. Another moment. There I earned my graduate degree in media studies, again growing and learning with the most remarkable group of artists as teachers, whose work I already knew quite well, Paul Sheritz, Tony Conrad, Woody and Stain of Azulka, Hollis Frampton, James Blue, Jerry O'Grady, and later Peter Weibel. Brian Henderson taught art history. We studied Jean Youngblood, Marcia McLuhan, Annette Michelson, structuralism and semiotics in a multi-parallel media history program. In the fall of 1976, I came back to Binghamton to engage with a number of projects at the Experimental Television Center. I received a CETA grant, which was a federal jobs program grant under President Jimmy Carter. I would be orienting artists to their ETC residencies, teaching them the new video tools in systems so that they could make their own work. It was there that I met electronic video designer David Jones, who designed and built many of the tools at the ETC. I wrote in my notebook the day of my meeting David that I had just met a person who would change the future of television, which was right. We together built 2 digital video frame buffers. I worked at the ETC together with Sherry Miller, who was the assistant director of the ETC for 7 years. I was programs coordinator, teaching artists, assisting in grant writing for new media tools, organizing exhibitions, and making my own recordings. The American Dance Asylum with Bill T. Jones, Arnie Zane, and Lois Welk were a dance company and a school that were located in downtown Binghamton. I worked with Merrill Blackman, together with the American Dance Asylum, on a number of video and dance projects, including Movements for Video, Dance, and Music, which you will see a video from in this evening's screening. During my time at the Experimental Television Center, I worked with approximately 700 artists. When I left the ETC, Hank Rudolph became the new programs coordinator. In 1985, I was invited to be on the faculty of media study at the University of Buffalo. What an experience. In 1987, I was invited to be faculty at the School of Art and Design, New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University, where I was a professor of video arts until the spring 2020. There I helped co-found and co-direct the Institute for Electronic Arts and the Electronic Integrated Arts graduate MFA program. The IEA, since its inception in 1997 through its residency program, has supported over 500 artists' projects. Since 2001, I've had the opportunity to exhibit, lecture, and workshop in numerous art schools in China, including in Beijing, Hangzhou, Shanghai, Jillian, Thank You, Xiaowen Chen, and Joseph Shear. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to be on numerous art organization and artist funding panels. I was also one of the early members and supporters of the Evolutionary Girls Club in Rochester, New York, founded by Erica Eaton. As Tomo mentioned, my video pieces are in collections worldwide, to a great extent through the distribution efforts by the Video Data Bank in Chicago. I'm very grateful to them for all the great work that they do. I would also like to communicate my thanks to Karen Helmerson in the New York State Council on the Arts, without which this world would look very different. Almost lastly, in 1998, Andrew Deutsch, Pauline Oliveros, and I established the sound and video performance group Carrier Band. Last month, Carrier Band, Andrew Deutsch, Rebecca Paloff, and I performed streaming online at the Buffalo International Film Festival, BIFF. Thank you, Anna Scamie. The performance documentation will be presented in a research curatorial project at the OCAT Institute this weekend in Beijing, China, in a program named Viral Transmission, a Medium in Between. Thank you, Yuzhuo Li. A majority of the work that you will see tonight was made at the Experimental Television Center in Binghamton and Owego, New York. Later pieces were made at the School of Art and Design and then IEA in Alfred, as well as in various home studios. A quick note, the first piece to be screened tonight is a 1975 video called Blue. It was made as an homage to Larry Gottheim in his beautiful film called Blues, a film of blueberries being eaten. My video, Blue, was thought of clearly as a video event through the transformation of the Namjoon Pike synthesizer colorizer. You will also see the Pike Abe colorizer together with the Radetra raster processor from a 1978 recording in the recent 2020 piece, Apparatus Number 2, at the end of the program. Tonight's video screening is of work spanning from 1975 to 2020. It is in two parts. Part 1, approximately 38 minutes, is work that we called standard NTSC video, 720 by 480 resolution. Part 2, approximately 40 minutes, is of work made in HD video, 1920 by 1080. I don't know if, I think Tom was going to explain how to move to the next piece, or the next part of this. So I would just say, don't forget the moment form. I hope you enjoy the video pieces. Here we go.
Okay, thank you so much, Pierre. And let me cancel Spotlight. And so I want to explain how we are going to do. Pierre and we experimented what would be the best way to show this online, and we decided to show it through Vimeo link, not showing through Zoom, but sending out link to YouTube. So then you could watch the program one on YouTube and come back to Zoom, and we are going to provide another link for part 2. So please open a chat window where I sent a link to YouTube, and now it's about 7:56, and as Pierre mentioned, the first part is about 38 minutes, which means we are going to come back again 8:34. So we are going to mute ourselves and stop videos. But if you cannot find a link in the chat window, please tell us in the chat window. So we'll see you again around 8:34.
Moments that appear, and part of it is about learning the language of the piece, or just becoming comfortable with it, in beginning to notice the patterns or feeling the patterns that are there in the kind of variables, because I think that's one way to look at a lot of this, is about a kind of image structure, sound structure, these variables that are in play. That's sort of thinking about it a little bit outside of what you actually experience. But it's within those elements that the pieces begin to kind of tug and pull in various ways.
Thank you, Pierre. And if anyone in the audience, attendees, questions, please raise your hand so that we can allow you to speak. I found a question in the Q&A window, so I'm going to read this. This is a question by Shirley Basarath. What made you decide when to use color in your artworks and when to use black and white videos instead?
Well, you know, that in terms of this time progression from 75 to the present, we started out with cameras that were black and white. That was, in a sense, kind of a given. So in terms of sort of the technology evolving, black and white was something, it was a kind of given. It was also a very beautiful image. And even now, looking back at some of the early half-inch reel-to-reel, the material from the movements for video, dance, and music, the quality of that, it's really a quality of a kind of instrument, like a kind of film stock that one recognizes as kind of like an old friend. The very first piece, Blue, used a black and white camera. In that case, it was actually running through this Pike Abe colorizer, which was known for very strong, hot colors, wild colors. I think there's some of the intensity there, but it's also amazingly restrained. But you know, that was where color was actually a kind of conceptual notion, or was playing with the fact the piece, Larry's piece was called Blues. It was of blueberries. I had a black and white camera on the blueberries. It was black and white. I then made them blue. But it's not so simple, because the processor does all kinds of things that were not within my control. So there's this issue about sort of choices that are being made. Obviously there were choices being made, but there were qualities that I didn't totally have control over either. And there are some wonderful things that happen. In fact, when Larry Gottheim got to see this film, which I was a little nervous about, quite honestly, wondering how he would respond, and he was very positive and very generous in his response. And he said, "Oh, I loved your piece very much. Your milk is so different from my milk." Which, you know, when you actually look at the two together, yeah, that's exactly right. It's just curious where the differences happen that make a difference. You know, this is sort of like this is really something about, I don't know, information theory and things that are usually not sort of the language of aesthetics, but where things kind of emerge, in relationships emerge. I think that, you know, there's probably about 100 pieces that I have that go from 1975 to the present. So we chose from a very much larger set, and as Tomo said in the beginning, we actually had to cut it by trial and error. There were a number of pieces that wouldn't play, a lot of high-speed pieces that wouldn't play. My guess is that they kind of alternated between black and white and color, and so, you know, different recordings at different times. I don't think I consciously thought, now I'm going to make a black and white piece, now I'm going to make a piece with a color camera, now I'm going to make a piece that's colorized. But all of those things happened. And again, because of this is sort of the, you know, ironic thing about the term minimalism, because minimalism is by no means minimal. It just means that the parameters are selected in a particular way, and things get really amplified, in fact, when you do that. So suddenly the black and white becomes really rich quality, and the head switching noise at the bottom of the frame. I'm thinking of the movements for video, dance, and music. That at the top of the frame, there's like over here in this corner is like some interesting things that are going on. Those are not effects; those are part of the physical fact of the image. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think these recordings are also made in the spirit of experimentation. Often I don't know where it's heading, and I'm open for the system and the image to give back to me. I'm in dialogue with it. I'm not a control freak, or I'm only a little bit of a control freak, and then I really let it happen. And I also make a lot of recordings, and I have recordings that I have continued to look at, and I actually think, wow, you know, I think this is really worth looking at. This is holding up. There are other recordings I've made that I was equally interested in when I was making them, and excited, and maybe even more excited. And then when I looked at them later, I thought, you know, it's just not, it isn't there. I'm not sure what happened. So trial and error, experimentation is a big part of the process for me. You know, there are, if you saw more of the pieces, there are a lot of, quote, objects that are in the pieces that are like blueberry. I have a piece called Apples. In fact, I just did a new variation on it that's apples with a new signal. There's grapefruit. There are tables, typewriters. There are chairs, bells, lights, signal lights, that are these kind of simple objects that also have these kind of, they live in the world in a particular way. They have they in a sense nested references, or but it's not clear how to read them or where they are, but one begins to look at them, one begins to fill in, they begin to actually have a kind of life about them. I didn't think of this quite this way, but I've been reading some of the object-oriented ontology, Graham Harman's, I think that's right, philosopher's work about objects, and this kind of curious equalization of objects, or this thing of where objects get agency. And in a sense, that's what happens when you put a frame on something, right? When you use the camera to frame something. Almost all of these pieces, or maybe all of these pieces, I have to think about it, or at least the majority, if not all of the pieces, are camera-based, right? So there's the optics of the lens, which is something I'm very interested in, and that's part of my background in the cinema, and the love of the cinema, and the love of sort of what the logic and what the logic of the optics are, what they do, how they are related to how our eyes function, and then how there are actually other kinds of optical logics